Alright, so today's lesson's on comparing. And data is a method of visually displaying a distribution of data value, where each data value is shown as a dot or a mark above a number line. So in this case, we're looking at hours spent on language arts homework. We have 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, and all the way up to 9 hours. And then each one of these dots is someone that was surveyed or part of the sample. So one person spent 2 hours, 3 people spent 3 hours, 4 people spent 4 hours, 3 people spent 5 hours, 1 person spent 6 hours, 0 for 7 hours, 1 for 8, and 1 for 9. Okay? So we have a few vocabulary words we're going to go ahead and talk about and how they relate to dot plots. I'm going to go ahead and skip variability first and move on, come back to that one. My first one we'll look at is peak. Peak is is being at the point of maximum frequency or intensity. Notice how it says maximum frequency. If we think about another word that you guys have done before that is the maximum frequency or that happens the most, it's just like mode. There's no difference from it. It's the same thing. But if I go ahead and look at my dot plot, we use the word peak here because we're looking for the very top, the one that goes the highest. And we can see that 4 hours would be our mode or our peak. It's the one that has the very highest. So in this case, it would be 4 students at 4 hours. Alright, cluster. It's a group of things or persons close together. So if I go ahead and look at the cluster here, I don't have a lot of data points over here, so that's not where my cluster would be. My cluster is going to be where the most data points are. And so if I look at right here, this 3 to 5, that's where the majority of my data points come in. So my cluster for this would be 3 to 5 hours. Okay. Usually that's where you're going to find also the median, the mean usually falls in there. It doesn't always, but most commonly it would. Alright, then the last thing we have is skewed. Okay. If we talk about a few examples here, we can just make any dot plots that you want. Okay, this one's very similar to the one we have up there. If it has a large number at first and then it kind of goes downward, this was a skewed to the right. Meaning we're going to the right. We're going downward to the right. If it's the opposite, say you start with very few data points and then we actually get maybe a lot more, okay, we'd actually do a skewed to the left. Okay. And then the other option you can have too is, let's say everything is nice and perfect and symmetrical. We would just say symmetrical, or this is also known as a bell curve. Okay. So in our example up here, we can see that it does have kind of a skewed to the right. All right, for that one. Okay. Now let's go ahead and take a look at 2 dot plots. We're going to go ahead and compare them. So the first one is, if we look at it, it talks about the number of hours students spend on their math and science homework in 1 week. So my first dot plot has to do with my amount of science homework, and then my second dot plot has to do with the number of math homework. Notice how both dot plots go from 2 to 10. All right. So what is the difference in the median value of each set of data? The median, remember, is the middle number. So in this case, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 points of data. So between my 7th and 8th point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it still appears up here for 4. And then over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it appears right here. So for science, okay, I have a median of 4. For math, I have a median of 5. And it's not asking me what the medians are, it's asking me what the difference is. So the difference of 5 minus 4 is 1. Okay, so 1 hour would be my difference. Okay. Number 2, how is the science graph skewed? If we look at our examples up above again, our science graph, we kind of draw a line over the top of it, we can see that it's a little bit skewed to the right. Okay. What comparisons can you draw from looking at the plots about the amount of time spent on homework? So if we look at the comparisons, and we can also look at kind of, I guess we can look at where they're clustered as well. So let's look at number 4 as we do with it. So does either graph show any clustering? There's definitely some clustering here for science. So let's go ahead and do this first. Science definitely has kind of a 3 to 5 hours cluster. And again, that's where their median is shown as well. Looks like your math kind of has a clustering about 4 to 5, we can say, because that's where the majority is. All right. And again, our median appears in that 4 to 5. Okay. So does either graph show any clustering? We can say yes, and we can say that most students spend 3 to 5 hours in science. We can say most students spend 4 to 5. Okay, so we look at the comparison of them. We can probably say that math has, we'll say, slightly more homework. Okay. And number 5, does either graph show a peak? What does that mean? If we look at our science one first, we know there is a peak up here of 4. That is the most common. So peak of 4 hours. That's our mode. Alright, and then if we look at our math, there's actually no peak here. 4 and 5 are tied, so there isn't one number that's more common than the other. Our mode would be both 4 and 5. But we can still say that is where the majority of them happen. Okay. So what I'd like to go ahead and do right now is pause your video. I'm going to go ahead and compare 2 more dot plots. This has to do with hours spent exercising versus hours spent watching TV. Our hours spent exercising is our first one. So go ahead and use that to answer questions 1 through 5. Once you've done that, you may go ahead and check to see how you did here. Okay. So my first one here is, what is the difference of the median value of each set of data? Alright, you should have found the median value as 2 for hours spent exercising and 6 for watching TV. Difference would be 4 hours. Is either graph skewed? We can pretty much say that our exercising is skewed to the right and our watching TV is skewed to the left. Okay. What comparisons can be drawn from looking at the plots about the amount of how much students spend their time? From this, we can see that students spend more time watching TV than exercising in a week. Number 4, does each graph show any clustering? Exercising, you should see a little bit of clustering between the 1 and 2 hours here. Okay. And then for watching TV, we should see the clustering between that 6 and that 8. That's when the majority of our students are. Okay. And number 5, we have, does either graph show a peak? And what does this mean? You should see that exercising does have a peak of 2 hours, and then that more students exercise for 2 hours than any other amount. If we look at our hours spent watching TV, there is no peak again. All the values are the same for 6, 7, and 8, but the majority of our students spend way more time watching TV than exercising.